Welcome to Sumbits, where we decode the PowerSchool development experience. Sumbits is brought to you by MBA. Let's start the show.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Sumbits. For us that are privy to actually seeing who we are joined by, this is a very, very special episode. We have the one, the only, the PowerSchool Evangelist himself, Jason Springle. Thank you, Jason, for joining us. Joined also by Eric Schaitel and Ryan Cockrem, as always. And it's been a little while since we've had an episode. We are still having a little drink, so we got to go through and see what everybody's drinking today. I'm sticking with the bourbon. I think I've still had a different one every episode, and today brought out the big old bottle of Ancient Age. If you're not familiar, this is a Buffalo Trace product. I would love to be sponsored by Buffalo Trace. I've gotten through a bunch of yours, but we'll see how that goes. What are you guys drinking today?
I'm going to one that I've had a few times that I just enjoy on a regular basis. Brewed locally here in Winnipeg, Trans-Canada Arrow, namesake the Avro Arrow. Interesting history.
Nice picture.
Right.
I'm feeling spicy today. So I am rocking the Miller 64.
You on a
But
diet
that's-
or not, Eric?
That's just an appetizer, though. So,
Okay.
to keep things interesting, once I get through my can of water, we're going to move on to a nice Sprecher's Abbey Triple. This is one of my favorites, and it packs a good punch. So, we'll save that one for the end of the episode.
The
I'm
second
much
half
more
of the show
familiar with
more
their
interesting than the first.
right. Yeah, it's always it always tends to go a different direction at that point. I'm more familiar with their sodas than I am their beers.
Yeah, they do some mighty fine beers as well. I there used to be a Sprecher's really close to me, and they had a thing where you go in and get a pint of beer and it costs whatever it costs, or you could get a taster, which was a 4-ounce glass, for I forget, it was like $4. But the thing is, the Abbey Triple, because it's high octane, they served it in a 6-ounce snifter for like $9. But if you ordered a taster,
But the sampler was still 4 ounces.
yeah, but it's still.
What is the percentage on it for being the triple?
Oh, now you're gonna make me struggle. This is 8.4.
Oh, I expected more.
So it's not.
One of the
Yeah,
triples.
it's not rocket fuel, but it's no MGD 64.
Glad to see you're
I,
still being thrifty. What are you drinking, Jason?
I got myself a KS hard cider.
Nice. Is that local to you?
I don't think so. They've got
No?
different flavors. I'm doing the just apple today.
Gotcha. I can't say I'm familiar with that brand. Now,
Can we talk about the white elephant in the room, please?
Yeah, exactly. So, go ahead, Eric.
I mean, friends, for those of you that are listening, I'm sorry that you don't get the eye candy that everybody else is getting right now. But it takes a special kind of human being to rock the bald dome. And Ryan Cockrem is owning it right now.
Totally.
My jaw just hit the floor when he popped into this meeting. And Mr. Hair down to the middle of his back is now smooth as a baby's bottom. And he's pretty.
Oh.
He's very pretty.
Not smooth. I did that once in my early 20s, and that's just so much razor burn. So
No, it is a lot of work. It is
and
a
it's
lot.
so much. Yeah,
That's what you call
I
a deep
learned the
summer cut.
lesson. It's a great summer pad. I'm going to be a lot more aerodynamic, I guess, or aquadynamic in the water. That's what the right term
Maybe
is.
by next episode we'll have three bald hosts.
Well, me and
Now-
Eric can give you pointers if you need any.
Yeah, I'll say I don't think I've ever had a shaved head, so I would need lots of input. So for the other people that are watching us, the thing that caught my eye when we first jumped on this call, we had, and Eric, you made reference to back to our OG episode with Roger Sprick, but I think Jason may have Roger beat here. For the people watching, you may see the shirt that Jason's wearing. So, I mean, the obvious question is, how long ago was that shirt? And more
Yes.
importantly, how long have you been in the PowerSchool world?
It's a deeply held secret. No, in fact, just the other week at PSU, I was telling the story of my history. So I came to PowerSchool via Apple in the early 2000s, hence the shirt. As I said, I tried to find the earliest PowerSchool clothing I owned, and I think this is it. But I was working at Apple from 94 till I switched over to PowerSchool, and actually saw PowerSchool in, I think it was 98 or 99. I went to a demonstration at a local school district for one of my customers, and it's actually a name a lot of people would know. He's now a PowerSchool employee. And he invited me to the demo to see this newfangled thing called PowerSchool. And when we left, the sales rep gave me access to their demo server. I just started playing around and haven't looked back since.
So I have to ask, what were you doing when you were with Apple then?
So I started there as a systems engineer and ended as a sales account executive, selling Apple hardware and software.
I did not know that at all.
Yeah, 11 years.
That's crazy.
So then I got to ask then how it started, because I mean, now you've been PowerSchool forever. What was it that made you go, ooh, PowerSchool, I want to put all my eggs in that basket?
It was, so revolutionary at the time. And, how honest do I want to be on this recording? So
that is completely up to you, my friend.
a lot of people on here have had student information systems back then. You had WinSchool, MacSchool, SAS EXP, and a lot of these PC-only student information systems, right? Everything was client-server back then. And so very selfishly, as a hardware salesperson, the people were getting rid of their Macs to run their student information system. And it's like, well, if you could have it on the web, then any platform will work and you can keep buying Macs. So that's what got me interested in seeing what it was all about. Plus, I mean, this is like pre-Google, right? So anything on the web was interesting and something new to look at. And it also, even back then had really great functionality compared to what was out there. So it got me interested in it. And I would then kind of go around and show it to other people as I was just talking about Apple stuff. Hey, have you seen this? And, one thing led to another. We acquired them. And I had a chance to switch over to that team. And
wait. Are you saying, Jason Springle, that you had something to do with the Apple acquisition, the Macintosh
Absolutely,
acquisition?
I'm not saying that. However, I was at the NECC keynote where Steve Jobs announced that PowerSchool was being bought by Apple.
Wowzers. That's fascinating. I have spent many a wonderful conference hanging out with Jason Springle, and there's a little tidbit I'd never heard before.
Yeah, that's
no one cares about ancient history.
So Jason Springle one time bought PowerSchool.
He was literally there at the beginning.
I showed it. I didn't buy it. I didn't run a school, but
I might exaggerate a little, but that's how it'll go down in the books. It's now on the Sumbits podcast, so that's how it will be recorded in gospel. Wikipedia and all other reference to PowerSchool.
The Evangelist, it's gospel.
That's right, exactly. It gets put in the Library of Congress now.
That's awesome.
I was going to comment that was back in the day when people were buying PowerSchool and not PowerSchool buying other things.
Yeah.
How the times have changed.
Speaking of it, we won't talk acquisitions, so maybe we will, but I think everyone knows we just had another big announcement last week at Edge.
Yeah, I was actually privy. I was very happy to be at Edge last week when PowerSchool made that announcement of working on acquiring School Messenger.
Now you're making me jealous. If you don't mind, though, I think those are good topics that we should get into. But I think 99% of the folks that listen to or watch this podcast know who Jason Springle is, and they probably know Jason as the evangelist, But so if we could talk, we kind of talked about some of the history there, Jason. But what do you do now? Do you just put out the PowerSchool Insider and then take the other 6 days of the week off, or how does?
I sure try. No, so I've always been in a solution engineering role at PowerSchool. And so that's, sort of the demo person for the product expert, et cetera. So the Insider started, it's been almost 6 years now, maybe a little over 6.
Has it really been that long?
Wow.
Out of frustration that I would watch the teams, because I was very interactive with the product teams even then, giving feedback, et cetera, as they were developing new features. And I'd see how hard the product team worked on all these things. And it would come out and it'd be like one sentence in a release note. And it didn't tell you what it was, how it worked, where to find it. There were no details. And even then I was doing some of those what's new presentations, but you had to come to a user group meeting to see it. We didn't have, a lot of these other avenues for distributing video even then. So if you couldn't make it to a PSUG and hear it from me directly, people were just left with nothing but those release notes. So I decided to have some type of way of getting that information out there if you couldn't come to a PSUG. And the Insider was born out of that frustration. It was right when PowerTeacher Pro was being launched. So we had all this big news to share. Everybody had 1,000 questions about this new gradebook and how's it going to work and all those kinds of things. And so if you go back and look, I think it was episode 2 was all about, top 10 things in PowerTeacher Pro and transitioning and all of that.
And I can definitely tell you, like the people that we talk to, and we still at MBA, I mean, we use the Insider as a reference tool, because why reinvent the wheel, right? When somebody's already done the walkthrough. So it's definitely highly, highly appreciated in the community.
Oh, thank you.
Well, hey, God forbid anyone's listening to us and is like, what is this Insider they speak of? So the best way for them to consume this information would be to get into the PowerSchool community and
that
just
the only place to find it
for Insider. Yes.
Yeah, that's all you need to do.
Right.
That should come up in your search results.
And then you typically drop a new episode. What, about once a month?
It started every 2 weeks. Sometimes I can maintain that pace. I wanted to do in this past weekend like an Edge follow-up, and that didn't happen. So it's kind of a summer lull, I guess. But yeah, I try to do them every 2 weeks.
We understand.
And fail every
Yeah, we know a thing or two about lulls that happened to go by.
Yeah.
So
what else do you, because I mean, so we've talked about that. No, I mean, one thing I wanted to kind of highlight that I think is still awesome, especially with how long you've been doing this and where you are and how busy you are, is you still maintain plugins on the exchange for people. You still contribute to that community. And I mean, I'd like you to say a little about that, but I mean, I think that is admirable that you're still there for the people, even though you're still, doing your job,
Well, thank you. It's usually weekends and weekend projects. Something will pop into my head, or I'll hear something, and or a customer's having a problem, and maybe I fixed something for them, and say, well, everybody would probably like having that also. So just different projects that come along from time to time. Where as long as I'm doing it, let's build it in a way that it'll work for everybody.
Also, I'll note, speaking of contributing to the community, I think it was just this morning I saw that you are on psug.io, helping people out and answering some questions on the PSUG forums out there on the web. And, that's one of the things that I've always heard as like one of the best things about the PowerSchool SIS is the community.
Hands down.
Yeah.
All
there you go.
Everybody listening, everybody that watches the Insider, everybody that goes to a PSUG is on that ginormous now email distribution list. I can tell you how unique that is out there as someone that, my job is to understand our competitors and what they're doing and what's going on. And there's nothing like it. In fact, I don't want to turn this any kind of anti-non-PowerSchool rant, but if the companies themselves didn't put on a conference, there might not even be a user group get together for some of these other systems out there. So while we have kind of started doing that too with Edge now for the second time. That was so long after the community was already established and doing all these things for decades.
And running with it.
So hats off to all of you out there that either attend or volunteer to present and share your wisdom. It really is unique and valuable.
So going back to your contribution, specifically like the plugins, I mean, how quickly after kind of getting into the PowerSchool world did you dive into customizations and realize that, there are some needs that I can build on the side on my weekends to help out the community?
Well, it took a little while because I didn't know anything about HTML. So first I had to kind of learn through experimentation, like I'm sure many people listening today had to do. And so you just kind of see what others have done. Even back then, we had the Yahoo group, maybe not super early, but not too long thereafter. And for those that can remember, some of it's actually still mirrored on PSUG.io. There's still the files area that was all pulled over from Yahoo groups. And that was the exchange, right, before there was a PowerSource exchange. And those folders are still there if you go digging through them state by state, and lots of mostly object reports, because obviously the plugin architecture didn't exist back then. But people would share the actual pages that you could then drop in the custom web root and all those fun old days before we had some of the nice tools that we have in the product today. But even then, it was just for my either own learning or to try and solve a problem, or, hey, we've got to prove we can do X, Y, and Z for a particular demonstration. So I might do a proof of concept, which would then turn into something more serious in some cases. So it just became sort of part of the job to know how all that worked and demonstrate it and then use it.
Can you remember back, what was your first customization that you were like really, really proud of and were like, look, everybody, I have something to share? Because we all know those first projects are like, I'm not going to share anybody because it's probably going to break. And I know it works here, but not for everybody. But at some point, there was one that you put out.
I think one of my earliest, it's still on the exchange, is the object report row templates. That's not the exact name, but basically after learning the trick where you can go to another row by checking the box to go to the next record, you could actually use an object report to create a roster list. It's not just one student per page like we're used to. And so after I learned that trick and saw, well, it's a little complicated to get that just right, I created a template, took the time to create a template with all these different rows. So everything was already laid out, and all you had to do was do a search and replace on the fields, the information you wanted in each of the columns, which you didn't have to worry about or struggle with all of the layout part of the object report. That was the really hard part. So I think that was one of the first ones I put out there on the exchange anyway.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So I know one of the big one that a lot of people use is the district search. With the new version of PowerSchool, with the is the term unified search, or is it global
Quick
search? Quick search. Thank you.
Quick search.
Was a lot of that functionality kind of taken into account when they were creating that?
Not at all.
Not at all.
It really wasn't, right? So there's probably a story behind everything I've done, but district search was, again, meeting with potential customers, hearing things they wanted, or, will the product do X? And, well, no, it can't do that. And so at that time, we got a lot of questions, or it's very common to ask, is there a way to search for any student? Because in the system they were coming from, before you enrolled a student, you would do a search to see if they were already there. They didn't have an automatic duplicate check like PowerSchool had. And so that was just the workflow they were used to. And so we'd get that question quite a bit. And I thought, that would be a really good thing to have. And the product team's not going to build it. So I'll just go ahead and do this customization. And so that's how district search was born. And I think it still, has that kind of unique role that it doesn't show you a lot by design, a lot of information about the student, just the bare minimum to understand if they exist in the system or not,
Sure.
and if they're going to be a potential duplicate or not. But that way you don't have to give people access to district office to search and find any student in the system.
So this is a bit of a loaded question, I guess, but I mean, based on what kind of led to that question that we just answered, and your solution, the product team wasn't going to make it. Are there things like, is a lot of the time when you kind of set out to make customization, even nowadays, is it just something you wish PowerSchool could do better and you're just not seeing done, and you're kind of trying to address it and then hope that someone will even, I mean, you're still working there, that they'll say it and go, hey, let's put it in. Or, but is it just generally, do you constantly see things that you wish PowerSchool do better? And is that always your goal, is to fix it then?
I think every one of us and everyone listening probably has a list somewhere, either close at hand or in a drawer. And we do pay attention to the ideas portal, despite what people may think. Even though there are a lot of items in there, we definitely go through there and look through them and number votes and all those kinds of things. But I don't think I've done a major customization in a while. I've been focusing more on the enterprise reports recently, for the most part. Chad Cole, who is also a PowerSchool employee, I don't know if he advertises that when he puts things out, but he's had some really interesting, much more major customizations later than I have.
Take a note.
Is there any specific thing right now you do wish PowerSchool could do better? Again, I know it's loaded, but
and we can cut it out if you don't want it published.
Ignore that long beep for the next 30 seconds.
Yeah, right.
Let me count the ways. There's always a wish list. Nothing I think I want to share here, but it's not easy, right? It's pretty challenging to try and balance what do we think we need looking into the future that maybe you don't even think about or know, or not know, but something you may not have even thought about that the system should be able to do. Obviously, customer satisfaction requests, things through the ideas portal, company initiatives, in recent years have also been a major thing. The enhanced user interface, started as sort of a company initiative to make the interface more in line with other products. Happily, it grew into a more, let's say, larger project to incorporate favorites and quick search and some of the other pieces that we got, not just icons instead of text. So that was a really good part of how that all wound up turning out after months and months and months. But there's always a wish list. Lots of things.
I mean, I would assume the QA part of that whole process is obviously way different, because if you're building a plugin or just a customization that you're putting in the Exchange, whoever downloads it and uses it is your QA, right? They're your testers, and there can be a conversation had there without months and months of hardcore business QA that PowerSchool is going to do with the full product.
Yeah, I think people will be pleasantly surprised or happy to know how much time goes into development. And so no one's ever happy with the pace of development. Like, why can't you just whip that out? I could have built that overnight and put it on the Exchange.
We are very aware.
Our developers can't build it like that.
Yeah.
Right? So they have to account for dozens and dozens and dozens of rules or things you might not even think about. Will this internationalize? Doing all the localization keys. So even besides just, is the code good and is the code okay and does it not break anything anywhere else in the system, which thankfully, we have all kinds of automated tests that run every single night on every single build that essentially simulate thousands and thousands of users doing all these different tasks in the system to see if anything breaks. You can't do that at a human scale. And so having those automated routines that, kind of come back and say, well, this is not working anymore. And okay, so it's not just that traditional QA, but also, taking all the other considerations of just all those little things that you might not think about that are behind the scenes that have to be done the right way, security, et cetera.
Sure.
If I may, it's just everything that you just said, Jason. It's just it's on a different scale, I'm sure, but I think it really brings up the point for something all of us as consumers of the PowerSchool SIS to be aware of is it's so easy to be an armchair quarterback, right? and this is a little self-serving soapbox here.
I was going to say, who am I talking to? No, you
But-
guys don't snipe at us that badly on the show. I've watched past episodes.
Well, yeah, we've all done our fair share of what you said earlier. Is like, I could code that overnight. What's the big deal? And yes, it's just not always that easy. Like you said, can it be internationalized? And what are the factors you have to take into account? What's the development time? What's the return on investment? Is this going to help us make more sales? Is this going to help us, better satisfy our current customers and retain our current customers? Obviously, you hate to say it, but at the end of the day, things come down to, what's going to make money is going to make sense. But if you're smart, satisfying your customers is what's going to make you money. It's just there are so many ingredients that go into that soup, and I've said it myself. If I ever disagree with certain decisions that are made, it's like, well, again, easy to be the armchair quarterback. I don't have all the information at my disposal that the people that need to make those tough decisions have. And when you talk too about the sheer number of users and not always knowing what to expect when something gets out in the wild. I always tell developers and within our company, like, if you're programming and go, well, this might not work if somebody does that, but nobody will probably ever do that. Somebody will eventually do that.
So I was just going to comment on that. Back when, Apple bought PowerSchool, how many students were you servicing? Versus, at Edge, I think they put up a statistic that, PowerSchool SIS is serving 50 million plus students now across the world.
Fair, that's across all of our products.
All products. That's not just SIS. Gotcha.
Yeah.
But still, it's not, how many was it in the early years of PowerSchool versus now?
Yeah. Tens of thousands versus millions and millions.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So you better not break stuff. And no one's perfect, right? So sometimes we might miss something, and okay, the next release will fix it. But I think everyone, hopefully, that's been using the product for 5 to 10 years has certainly seen. Let me put it this way: how many people would never take a release until someone else had it for a month? I'll just wait,
That's
2 months,
people.
3 months, and then I'll install it, and someone else would have found the problems. And I don't think that happens as much anymore. Some of that's because of hosting, and
Right.
we're going to upgrade you automatically unless you don't want to be. But I think there's much more confidence in the product for some time now than there was in the past.
When I was working at a district, I was always one of those customers where I would take it right away. Always, and then everyone would look to me to see, what happened. But I will say, PowerSchool has always been great in acknowledging an emerging issue and having a solution as soon as possible. And I know sometimes it would come out on a Saturday evening, because you want to get that solution out. And
Yeah.
So again, it's a hat tip there to being able to be on top of it and not leave everyone in the lurch just because it's a weekend.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big decision, right? Has what we found, is it so serious that we need to put out an immediate patch and not wait for the next monthly release now that we're on a monthly cadence? So you do sometimes see those, not escalation releases, because those, we try to use that term specifically for a security escalation, that fourth digit in the 4-digit version number, but the third digit. So 23.5.1 came out shortly after .5 because we needed to push something out pretty quickly. So yeah, that it does happen from time to time.
We've taken a similar approach. We've actually taken a page out of the book of PowerSchool when it comes to versioning our PowerSchool plugins. It just makes sense.
It works until everything is 23.6.
Right. Well,
The core,
yeah,
the
it gets
state
confusing.
reporting, your plugin, 10 other plugins.
And it's confusing when you jump from version 10 to version 20.1, but we all settled into that quickly enough.
I think it went to 19, right? It was 12 to 19.
Yeah.
I think that was the big jump. So So, speaking of growth and how much PowerSchool has grown, not just user base, but just, company size and what they're doing with the product, thinking of just larger projects like, the accessibility type things and whatnot. And now with the enhanced UI and kind of bringing everything under the same thing, trying to look towards the future of PowerSchool, and kind of the first thing that comes to mind in my mind right now in technology that's advancing right now is AI. And again, I was very excited to be at Edge last week and was excited to see that PowerSchool is looking at AI as a tool that they're going to look at putting in some of their products.
Not looking at, is
doing. Yeah, for sure. Is that exciting for you? Based on your history, and it's more of a hands-on, whereas the AI is more of a outside of the grasp of what we've done for the last 20 years.
I think I'm neutral at the moment. Maybe because our current work doesn't involve the SIS. We're looking at Performance Matters and a new product we launched or announced. It's not out yet, called Learning Nav. Are some of the first products to leverage open AI with our partnership with Microsoft. And they're open, hopefully I get this right, Open Azure AI or Open AI Azure, something
along those terms. Yeah.
I should know that. Anyhow, so that's kind of where we're starting. But I think everyone recognizes like the genie's out of the bottle, for better or worse. So I think there's almost a reflexive desire to say it's not Chat GPT, it's not the same, so it's a generative AI. So we're going to essentially be able to leverage the data that we already have and, examples that we already have to come up with recommendations. So for example, in Performance Matters, the demonstration that was shown last week is auto-generating test items. So you give it a standard, a grade level, and a prompt, and it will create the test item or a whole bunch of them for you. Well, we already have our own item bank that we design, develop with a team of experts to do that, psychometricians, et cetera. There are other item banks out there that companies sell as well. But you could take some of those existing items to help train the AI and what a good item looks like, et cetera. So there's sort of a template it can learn off of, which is a key part of that whole process.
Sure.
So I'm not sure how we would use AI in the SIS. Someone said last week, hey, you need to use AI for, cleaning up addresses or fixing mundane tasks, or it should figure out that, your phone number and your address don't match or something like that. So, who knows what the future holds in that respect.
And someday it will. Just tell those people that they won't have a job anymore. Believe me, we developers worry about that a little bit from time to time.
I think I've had a couple conversations with Ryan about AI, and there's a bit of concern there.
So they're not be T1000s, but a T10 sitting on your desk. If you don't do attendance just right, it's going to get you.
That's great.
Well, back onto maybe another leg, but something very light and easy. Being with PowerSchool for so long, and maybe you just answered it technically, but what is your fondest memory? What is your favorite thing in all this time? Because you've been around with it for so long, and I'm sure there's a lot to choose from. But you've seen a lot, you've been through a lot, you've seen a lot of change from the very beginning. Definitely, for someone who's stuck through from the beginning there with Apple and various changes throughout the years, and here you are still. So what is your fondest memory of all this?
Well, first, just to be fully honest with the record, I did leave PowerSchool around 2005 to go work for and sell. I wanted to go back and sales and curriculum at a little known company called Pearson. And so I was actually at Pearson for a year and a half selling curriculum stuff, which was perfect because I had young kids and I could give them the products I was selling and made them really smart, I think. But then in 2006, Pearson acquired PowerSchool. And I got a phone call from a former colleague, hey, would you like to come back and be a PowerSchool SE? And that's what thankfully got me back to PowerSchool.
That is hilarious.
I was
So you
just
couldn't
meant to
escape.
be here, I guess. Right? Yeah. It's. Well, I thought I got out, but they pulled me back in. Right?
I was gonna
Someone
say,
called
yes,
fate.
I was gonna say I hear Al Pacino in your voice all of a sudden.
But minus that little gap, I think the launch of PowerSchool Enterprise was the most exciting. No, I'm just kidding. People don't even know what that is. So for those that don't know, as part of Apple, Apple was all about web objects at the time, a technology that was part of the acquisition of Next when the dawn of OS X came out, and all these things that were happening at Apple. And so that would be the perfect engine. It's, designed for enterprise and does all these amazing things. We'll just rebuild PowerSchool on top of web objects. And that effort started and failed horribly. So that was an interesting time trying to sell PowerSchool Enterprise.
Hey, if you're gonna make it
So maybe not my favorite moment over all these
Well,
years.
it's honest. I
But
can't.
maybe memorable.
I you know what? I've gone through those things. There are times when I've spent a month or two working on a project, and it's like, well, that doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
That's sometimes you got to learn the hard way. Those are the best lessons, and if you don't try and fail, you're probably never gonna innovate because you won't try and wind up succeeding next time around.
Yeah, you'll find an alternate solution to getting off of 4D instead of web objects. And you'll go to, I don't even remember now what it was we went to before Oracle. There was an interim.
Sybase? Is Sybase?
Sybase,
No.
yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
And we learned that from Roger Sprick.
Right.
So I think one great memory was the very first Michigan PowerSchool user group. I live in Michigan, for those that don't know. So to have a local user group start up, and a guy, Joe Miller, I think was his name, said, we should get some folks together in the county, and anyone else from the state that wants to come join our little county get together, feel free. And so that really was the literal dawn of what became the Michigan PSUG. And then obviously everybody knows now Joe Miller and the gang he put together that does the national PSUG and all the regionals. So kind of be there at the beginning of that as well was really interesting.
I didn't realize you were a part of that initially.
Yeah, so there were 2 rooms, myself and another SE, the same employee that shall remain unnamed. Some people might know who I'm talking about, but anyway, so that was it. I was in one room, he was in the other, and we just talked about, different topics, and that was the first user group meeting, at least in Michigan. Folks from Indiana will be, hey, wait, we had PowerSchool High School way before any other user groups are out there. So that's their claim to fame.
Yeah, I've still yet to see any of the documentation of dates and everything, but
that's true. They don't have any proof. If Don Chase is listening,
right?
We want to see the evidence now. But
so maybe some of his cohorts will let him know to watch this episode. We'll get some documentation.
I love the name too.
It's interesting to me.
PowerSchool University. So
PowerSchool High School. Yes.
It's interesting me just thinking about the whole butterfly flaps its wings theory right now as you brought up Joe Miller, and it occurs to me that none of us would be sitting here having this meeting right now if it wasn't for Joe Miller.
No.
So yeah, here's one for Joe. I mean, that's how I feel like all of us got to know one another.
Yep.
Is the events that he got started.
Yep.
Which he probably just stole the idea from Indiana PowerSchool High School. He made it happen. So.
I mean, in true PowerSchool form, you just steal it from someone else and make it better, right?
That's how you roll.
Let's see. I'll give you another one that comes to mind. So probably 2 years after that, there was a Michigan PowerSchool user group in Petoskey, Michigan, or maybe it was the year after. And they had it at a local high school. And it was in the summer, June or July, right? Nobody's there. School's out, no one there, so we can all have our meeting. But the high school was not air conditioned. And they had sessions on the first floor and the second floor. And all of Jason's sessions were on the second floor, where it was even more of a sauna than the first floor. I mean, it must have been easily 100 degrees in that room with the projector going, and projectors back then were much bigger, much hotter, and all that kind of thing. So
They at least get you a fan to blow around hot air.
no, but I think I lost 10 pounds.
Just as a quick divergence, that reminded me of back, working for my old district and helping with Power Scheduler, and the principal of one of the schools that had a second floor, how she would not, like, she knew who was which teachers were expecting that year, pregnant, and she would make sure to set in rules to make sure those teachers would not be scheduled in rooms on the second floor because of the heat.
Now that's a constraint.
I know, right?
I'll add that. I'll mention it's a product team. You need a baby bump constraint.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
This might be the first time that I've ever heard a Power Scheduler based joke.
Yeah, right.
But it was true. It's funny because it's true, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure Greg's got some.
That's one of those, as we call them, edge cases, right? That no one dreamed of when the product was being built or developed. As Eric was saying earlier, right? They'll never use that, so it's okay if we leave that in. Those are edge cases.
Be a thing.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
So where it's what's your next big hope, next big thing on the horizon? What's the next big goal for you here?
For the product?
Yeah.
That you can
That
talk about.
you can freely talk about.
After last week, I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens. Should the sale conclude, because hasn't yet, it's just an announcement, legalese, blah, blah, blah. But if the acquisition goes through and Schoolmaster becomes part of PowerSchool, I think, as we've seen with other past partners that even already had an integration using the plugin and development tools that are available to our independent software vendor partners, what we can then do with it once it's within the company and can go into core code and other things will be really interesting.
I hadn't thought about that.
Cool.
That is interesting.
So out of curiosity, I think we've probably got a lot of folks listening right now that are wondering, what does that mean about my communication tool if it's not currently School Messenger? If you don't mind my asking, maybe another loaded question. You probably expected one or two of those.
Well, again, the tool set that everybody relies on to interact with their other products aren't going away, aren't changing. So
they
hopefully it doesn't mean anything.
So they'll have more options should they choose to go one direction, but they're not going to be forced in any particular direction.
Always have, always will, hopefully.
Great. No reason to.
I always say hopefully because I'm not Hardeep. But
sure.
If you just look, historically, yeah, we have an acquisition, but whatever you have, still works.
Jason, you've been such an integral part of the PowerSchool community for so long, and to have somebody like you within the confines of PowerSchool that still embraces us and enjoys our company and helps us do what we all do is such a great thing, and I hope that never changes. And it's been great getting to know you over the I think we've known each other for 15 years now, and these guys probably just as long, if not longer. And it's been great working with you. Great seeing you at conferences. Always wish we could see you more. I do appreciate you joining the podcast with us today. But with that, I think it's time to say bye, unless there's anything else. Any major announcements you want to make today, Jason? We've had John Dunleavy announce his retirement. I think we've had a couple other big announcements on the podcast. That's the one thing that I do remember from back in the day. But we're always open.
I guess the only announcement, no, it's can't say, but there are things that I wish I could talk about, but I can't. So I'll leave everyone with that little teaser.
Well, you know what that means. You'll just have to come back. Yeah.
There you go.
Just have to come back next time.
Stay tuned for part 2.
Maybe a delayed part 2. Jason, I appreciate it. Thanks for being on.
Thank you,
My
Jason.
pleasure.
See everybody next time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. Enjoy more episodes and learn more at mba-link.com.